Looking for a place to watch all the games with your buddies this football season? You've got to stop by Long Neck Sports Grill. There are 3 locations, each one of them with 4K TVs all over the place, and the sound is always on for the big games. And you've heard me talk about Long Neck's menu, but have you tried the wings? What are you waiting for? And no place has a better beer selection than Long Neck's. And don't forget, Long Neck Sports Grill is also home of the Roundtable Show. Wilder, Hebron, and Richwood, each one of them awesome. Long Neck Sports Grill. This football season, stay late. Come often. For a little over a year now, we've had a chance to work with the folks at OrthoCincy to answer all of our injury questions. And we've got a few as they relate to NFL players here in just a second. I have not needed OrthoCincy's service until last week. My daughter, if you maybe you saw this, if you follow me on social media, I posted a photo of my daughter who's in the first grade last Thursday. Had an accident at recess, and it turns out that she has a small fracture in her foot. She is almost 6.5 years old, and as kids do, horsing around, and she has a small injury. She's in a walking boot, and she plays soccer. There's a couple more games left. Obviously, her soccer season is over. She is probable for Halloween. We like her chances of being able to trick or treat. She's going to give it a go. Not even a game time decision. I'm ruling her as like she's available for trick or treating next week. But anyway, so this went down. This happened last Thursday, and we found out early in the afternoon. My wife goes and picks her up from school, and then we got to figure out where we're going to go. And so I called OrthoCincy, and you always hear me say you never need an appointment. Well, we didn't, and we made an appointment for early the next morning, figuring we'll both get home and see how things are. And we had a chance to work with the folks at OrthoCincy, and we've had the guy who treated my daughter, Dr. John Linz, has been on this show a bunch. He's one of the best foot and ankle specialists in the area, and he saw her in Anderson first thing on Friday morning. And, there's a lot of places they might not have walking boots for 6-year-olds. OrthoCincy took great care of her. So not the sort of thing that caused us to panic. It's a foot injury. You could certainly deal with much, much worse, but still you hate seeing your kid in pain and discomfort and deal with the uncertainty that comes with that. And the staff at OrthoCincy was awesome. And she's walking around in a boot. I think she enjoys the attention. She sleeps in the boot. She slept in bed with us the first night. I got kicked by that boot about 40 times during the course of the night, so that wasn't that much fun. But dealing with the folks at OrthoCincy was incredible. So our thanks to Dr. John Linz and his staff, and I now can speak firsthand. The people at OrthoCincy are awesome, and they did a terrific job working with my daughter. And we'll be back. We go back for a follow-up appointment next Friday. So I want to thank Dr. John Linz and his staff for taking such great care of her. Now, speaking of OrthoCincy, as we do on Wednesdays, we have with us today Dr. Brandon Kohrs from OrthoCincy, who, by the way, played college football at Thomas More. OrthoCincy Orthopedics and Sports Medicine has specialists and locations all over the tri-state. This includes walk-in orthopedic urgent care at 5 tri-state locations and extended evening and weekend hours in Edgewood and Anderson. Learn more at OrthoCincy.com. That's OrthoCincy.com. Dr. Kohrs, let's start with Orlando Brown. He is dealing with a groin injury that he aggravated during the Bengals' last game. Obviously, he's had some time to rest. With the bye week, he says he feels good. He's ready to go on Sunday. When it comes to groin injuries, what are the range of possibilities?
So, first you kind of have to define what a groin injury is. When we say, everybody says you pull your groin, strain your groin. So it's the adductor musculature, which is what allows you to close your legs. So, if you're an offensive lineman and, you're trying to go up against somebody like Nick Bosa this Sunday, you can imagine you're going to have a lot of lateral movements. And so typically, especially early in the year, you can, strain those, tweak those. So go to a best case scenario, worst case scenario. Kind of best case is that this is just a low grade muscle pull, muscle strain. It's been irritated. You get through the bye week and, he makes a full recovery. He's icing, he's doing all the proper treatments, and he's good to go. Worst case scenario is that something that, lingers. I think he initially tweaked something in the Tennessee game. And so, this kind of continues to be more of a chronic issue, and it bothers him, throughout a lot of the season. But it sounds like, I mean, you look at his interviews, he's hoping to practice today. I think we'll know more today on how he does, and he says he's feeling good. So, hopefully we get him moving out there and get him shutting down the 49ers.
That would be great. When you are dealing with something like this, what are some things that could be done to avoid this cropping up again, this being something that's aggravated, this being something that reoccurs?
Yeah, so I think a lot of that is just, proper stretching, proper warm-up. That's true for anybody, and then you could be Orlando Brown Jr., you could be, somebody who's playing on an indoor soccer league in their 40s and 50s. It's just kind of proper stretching and proper warm-up. And that's the issue with the groin, too, is that, it's kind of an area that's difficult to really target. And I think that's why, you see a lot of these kind of early on groin pulls that, are rarely, significant to meaning that, you're missing the majority of the season, but it's something that can be definitely irritating, especially for somebody who needs a lot of lateral movement and quickness, playing against, big defensive players.
So when the Bengals beat the Seattle Seahawks, we started to talk about their game against the San Francisco 49ers. They played that day, and one of the players they lost in their defeat against Cleveland was Deebo Samuel, and we have since found out that he's not going to play. He didn't play on Monday. He's not going to play on Sunday against Cincinnati. We know, at least to a degree, what the nature of the injury he is dealing with is. It's a hairline fracture in his shoulder. This is maybe a simple question, but I'll ask it anyway. What is a hairline fracture versus, quote, a normal fracture?
Right. So I would define a hairline fracture. I mean, if you want to talk basics, it's actually a fracture that, like literally you pull up an x-ray and it looks like a little piece of hair, and it's just a simple line that you can kind of see. Now, with Deebo Samuel's injury, you look back and it looks like his x-rays were negative. So, I think with him, this is something that they probably just picked up on MRI, where he maybe has, everything structurally is intact, but you see something kind of light up on MRI. And, that's like a best case scenario situation. I mean, you talk about, versus a normal fracture. A normal fracture is one that's completely obvious. That's displaced, that's in pieces, and that, you're going to be out for months and months and from potentially the rest of the season there. Whereas something like this, you hope he comes back pretty well. Maybe not from our standpoint, from the 49ers standpoint, you hope he comes back pretty quick from this.
So they're optimistic. He didn't play Monday. He's not going to play against Cincinnati, but the medical staff there is optimistic that he'll be able to go week 9. It feels like the timeline for this injury is relatively short. Why is that?
I think it's the degree of the injury. And you look at last year, right? Jamar Chase has a similar type, hairline type fracture in his hip, and I think he missed 4 or 5 weeks, and he's back out there running around doing well. And so, I think that's probably a similar type injury for Deebo Samuel, where it's not to say it's a bone bruise. You can kind of think of it along those lines, where there's some injury to the bone, not significant enough to be picked up on X-rays, and something that, you hopefully recover within a couple of weeks from and get back out there without any setbacks or issues.
Dr. Brandon Kohrs from OrthoCincy is with us. One other player I want to ask you about, Anthony Richardson, the rookie quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. He injured his shoulder on a running play back during Week 5 against Tennessee, had surgery yesterday. He is dealing with an AC joint injury in his throwing shoulder, so his rookie season is over after having surgery. Obvious question here is, what is an AC joint?
An AC joint stands for acromioclavicular joint. So that is where if you feel over, everybody driving, don't do this while you're driving, I guess, but all the way at the end of the collarbone, you can kind of feel a little joint there. So that's the end of the clavicle, and then you go over even further than that, out lateral. That's called the acromion, or what we can call your root bone, and there's a joint there. And very commonly injured area, especially in football players, quarterbacks, you see it in. It's usually a direct blow, typically from the shoulder to the ground, and basically the end of that clavicle pops up. So you tear some ligaments at that AC joint. There's also what's called your corticoclavicular joint, which is and a little more, which is actually the most important of the two joints, and those ligaments get disrupted, and these can be quite painful, and usually they don't need surgery, but sometimes these are ones that you end up operating on.
Are we dealing with something here, if you're a Colts fan, are you worried about him not being able to play next year?
No, I think he comes back next year. You look at return to play on these. I think, you give him, it's October now. I mean, I think he's good by training camp, and I think he's good for next year. What you do worry about with these, though, I mean, these are injuries that, you look at the data. I mean, we have maybe not hundreds, but I mean, there are numerous different techniques for this. This is actually a joint that, we haven't really mastered. And I mean, you look there could be a 20-30% complication rate with these type injuries, and things can stretch back out. So it's definitely something that he's going to want to go really slow with and take his time with his recovery.
Awesome insights. Been good to have you, Dr. Brandon Kohrs from OrthoCincy. You can learn more at OrthoCincy.com. Appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, there we go. Dr. Brandon Kohrs from OrthoCincy.com. I say this every single week, but it's true. The awesome thing about OrthoCincy is they have specialists and locations all over the tri-state, including walk-in orthopedic urgent care during the week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at both Edgewood and Anderson. It is easier and cheaper. It's easier because you don't need an appointment, and it's cheaper because it's, cheaper than going to an ER whenever you have an urgent orthopedic injury. Learn more at OrthoCincy.com. That's OrthoCincy.com. If you're a football fan, you've got to stop by Long Neck Sports Grill. There's no better place to watch all the games with your buddies. Whether it's college or pro, there are 4K TVs all over the place, and the sound is always on for the big games. Long Neck's menu is awesome, and you've got to try the wings, and you're not going to find a better beer selection than what they've got at Long Neck's. Plus, don't forget, Long Neck's is also home of the Round Table Show. There are 3 locations in Northern Kentucky: Wilder, Hebron, and Richwood. This football season, Long Neck Sports Grill. Stay late. Come often.